What a lot of people on the internet, my name is Kevin and welcome back to another video. So for today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about the books that made me cry, and you always know you've read a good book when you feel something from it. Especially tears. If it makes you cry, well, you know, the book must have been good because you must have cried, unless you're crying because it was just so bad, which I don't know if many people do that. Do people cry over a book if it's that bad? I don't think so. Maybe they do. Let me know if you do. Yeah, anyways, I have like 5 books I'm going to show you guys that have made me cry. One I only finished last night and it's quite recently still like upsetting to even talk about because I'm still so emotional over it. But yeah, I'm going to jump straight into this and show you guys the 5 books that have made me cry. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Now this is the book that I was talking about that I just finished. I literally just finished this last night and I was an emotional wreck last night when I finished this. I have actual footage that I sent to my friend Ilse on Snapchat of me crying, and I saved it because I knew I was going to film this video, so I was like, I need to show the footage of me crying because it's just hilarious. And yeah, here's the footage. So yeah, I cried quite a bit. Like I actually at the end of it, like my chin started wobbling and I was just like like I was that much of a mess reading this. Like I've never cried to that much. This is the first book that's made me cry that much. Like I was actually gasping for breath. I was in so much tears. Oh my god, I'm gonna start tearing up again. No, we're not gonna get into this because I do not want to start crying again. But this book, guys, if you haven't read it, just read it. I don't want to say too much about this because I did not know a thing about this book, and it's just so beautiful, and it's one of those books that's going to stay with you for such a long time and has such a deep, meaningful message to it, and it's just a great book. It has pictures in it too, but that doesn't mean it's like for younger audiences. I think anyone could read this. I'm going to try get my mum and my auntie to try read this book because I feel like it's something they'd really enjoy. And yeah, just read it. Try not to know too much about it when you're going into it. It will just blow your mind. It's so good, and let me know if you cried to it. The next book that I'm going to talk about that made me cry is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This is a book that I read last month and I cried a lot to this book too. And this was a book that I was crying at different parts of the book. Like with A Monster Calls, I only cried at the very end. But with this, I cried at like the midway point and then another part near the end and then the actual end. And yeah, I didn't cry like hysterically crying like I did with A Monster Calls, but I still cried a lot with this. This just follows like LGBTQIA plus related topics, and so I was able to relate a lot to this, and I think that's why I cried so much. I didn't know how to explain this book because once again I didn't know anything about this book when I went into reading it, and honestly reading a book without knowing what it's about is such a good way to read sometimes because you're just so surprised by how the book is. Like the only thing I knew about this book was that it featured a gay character, and that's all I did know. I didn't know anything else about the plot, and it just blew my mind. It's such an amazing book. It's once again one of those books that's going to stay with me for a while. I probably will reread it eventually, and I just related so much to it, and that is exactly why I cried. The next book that I'm going to talk about is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This is a book that made me cry not so much. It was only like a few tears, but it still managed to make me cry, and it's such a beautifully written book, and it's definitely made me want to read more by Jennifer Niven. And yeah, so if you don't know what this book is about, it's about a girl named Violet and a boy named Finch. Yes, they're the names. I couldn't remember the names. And basically, they meet on top of like the school tower or something because Finch is about to commit suicide, and then Violet like talks him off doing it. And basically it just follows that then, and their like relationship develops and stuff. And yeah, it's just such an amazing book. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend that you do. It's also becoming a movie soon, so that might be more reason to read it. And yeah, let me know if it makes you cry because it made me cry. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Now this book is like the second to A Monster Called in terms of how much it made me cry. Like I cried a lot during this book too, and it was at the very end. And if you've seen the movie, if you've read the book, you will know why I cried a lot to it. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about this girl named Lou who has become recently unemployed, and she gets a job looking after this man named Will who is in a wheelchair. So if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend you do read it because it's such a great and amazing book. It has some like mixed opinions, but I love this book so much, and it made me bawl my eyes out. The final book that I'm going to talk about that made me cry is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the final book in the Infernal Devices trilogy, and this book, just because it's like the final book in the series, like it was just really an emotional roller coaster ride on this book, but it's mainly near the end that I cried during this. I didn't cry a lot, it was only a few tears, just because the epilogue in this book is so gut-wrenching and just sad, and it just hits you so hard with all the feels, and you just start crying unknowns to yourself, which is exactly what I did. And yeah, if you've read the Infernal Devices trilogy, or if you finished this book, you will know exactly why I cried at the epilogue. And there was another part in the book as well that I nearly cried at, but I didn't. But it was just the epilogue hit me so hard with all the feels, and I was just so sad, and it was just more sad because the trilogy was finished. Yeah, this book managed to make me cry too, and maybe I just need to get some help because I'm crying a lot during books. So yeah, these are my top 5 books that have made me cry. There are a few other books that have made me cry too, but these are my top 5 favourite ones that I've read that have made me cry. Let me know down below if you cry a lot during books, or if you're someone who doesn't actually cry ever reading a book. Let me know, and maybe you should give me some tips because I need to stop crying during books. And other than that, I will see you guys all in my next video. So goodbye!